Alrighty, what's going on, you guys? This is David from Infinite Art. I'm gonna be showing you guys, well, kind of like a demo almost. I'm gonna be drawing a kind of Greek statue-esque reference that I'm using here. We're doing it on toned paper, it's toned tan. And well, like with any face, we're gonna start with a circle. His jaw is kind of dipping over this way, and his nose is like over here. He's looking this way in the reference. So we'll try to capture that by making sure that we have the right center lines facing in the right directions. So that's kind of the angle of his face there. And we can use a couple different landmarks to measure after we get some of this down. But right now, the basic thing that I want to get down is just the jaw, the nose, the ear, and placing in the neck. And then off of that, we'll kind of be able to place everything else. So I tend to start with the nose. So that's what we're gonna do here. We're just gonna kind of bring this contour of the nose here. Bounces out slightly this way. And it just starts coming down. Oh, I can't really see there. And it just starts coming down this way. I need to get a much better tripod. Let me zoom out like this. Yeah, there you go. That's much better. So yeah, just dips out this way. And we have a slight bump here on his nose. We'll try to as well capture. And now I like to do the nose first because I'm really bad at noses. So whatever size this nose is gonna dictate, to me at least, the size of everything else. And I'll build my proportions around the nose, just because I'm so bad at them. Sometimes we gotta erase, that's okay. Pull this back slightly here, yeah. And kind of comes in this way, the contour of the nose. Something like that. It's not bad at all, okay? And so the fulcrum, his fulcrum specifically, is gonna come almost from the base. It's gonna dip out this way. So once again, we're gonna use these landmarks and kind of work our way down from the nose and just try to make sure everything is the right size proportionally. And this is more or less his top lip here. And we're gonna play with these proportions, you know, a little bit more soon. We obviously are not at the stage where we have any kind of, you know, set of proportion correctly. And alrighty, so at the bottom of your bottom lip, usually there's a shadow under here because your lip is casting a slight shadow over this part of your bottom lip tends to cast a shadow over this part here. So we just keep that in mind as we're drawing. Obviously, we're not going to draw that in now, but what I am going to do is I'm going to draw in almost like a separating shape here, which is part of his chin. His chin comes pretty much flat here. And this is where our shadowy area is going to be under the lip. Now we're going to, under your neck, you have a little bit of fat, slightly. And whoever the artist was that drew this, because this is not a Greek statue. Like, I'm not using a Greek statue as a reference. I'm using a drawing of a Greek statue as a reference, just to nail the proportions, and then I will be doing my own form of shading. That is kind of more my speed, my style. You don't have to copy a reference exactly, although sometimes that's good to do. You don't always want to copy it exactly. You want to just get aspects from it that you need, such as proportions and, maybe just the right contours, knowing what to put where. That's the type of thing that you capture from a reference. Although it is good to draw directly from the reference and just copy it when you're starting out, because you start to get used to different kinds of lines, different kinds of techniques, and your brain almost starts to capture it slowly by itself. So right here, we're peeking into the neck. Just drawing like he has some kind of shoulder pad or something. I'm just trying to kind of put that in there for a split second there. Alrighty, now I'm realizing this nose needs to be slightly pulled back here, like this. And off of here, we're gonna have an eyebrow. Gonna slightly come that way. And we're gonna connect this eyebrow to the rest of the face, like so. Now off this eyebrow, we have a brow ridge, comes up this way. And comes up into the forehead. And you wanna, distinctly separate the brow ridge and the forehead. Although I did it in a very bad way. I need to bend this in more. As soon as I lifted the pencil off the paper, I was like, ooh, what is that? That's horrible. Okay. Alrighty, that's not looking too bad. We're gonna get a little bit of thickness in this eyebrow, just as an indicator. Just like that. Okay. Now, we have a bit of a wrinkle here, and I'm not focused too much on the details, but these specifically I do kind of need, because these wrinkles in the middle kind of helps me place the other brow. And this brow is going to be slightly more elevated because of the angle of his face facing down this way. So his brow is going to be slightly more up, more here. Something like that. Actually, something a little further up here. More like this, yeah. That looks about right. And now his actual, hold on, let's draw this in first. So we have like a marker. There you go. And then off of this, we have some reflected light, shadowy shapes here. For his eye socket. Well, no, this is like his other brow ridge, actually. And okay, nice. And now the bottom side of this is where we're gonna actually be able to catch the actual brow ridge. Like the bottom of the brow ridge. Perfect. Okay, now we're gonna kind of move around a little bit. I don't like to really stay in the same place all the time. So we're gonna come down to here actually, because I kind of want to start adding in this Adam's apple for him. So his Adam's apple comes off this piece of neck fat that we already placed down here. So I can use it as a landmark as to where to place it. And I find this to be the easiest way to just kind of, you know, make sure everything's in the right spot and the right size without really having to measure much. Although you can take the time to measure as well. I just, I don't know, I tend to not do that as much as I feel like I should. Now, this is wrong actually. I'm just trying to draw in all the contours right now. Well, this is more or less a contour for his Adam's apple here. And we have a shadowy shape that comes kind of up this way and leads into the rest of his jaw here. So we're gonna try to once again show that here. And we're not gonna draw in that shadowy shape yet. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do that in a bit, as soon as we're done kind of laying in all this foundational work here, which will be the proportions and the form. If you have proportion issues and form issues, take the time to fix them before you get into the shading stage, because then you're gonna end up with, well, you're gonna end up with a polished turd. You don't want that. Okay, so now we kind of have the jaw placed, and I like to kind of just take a, you know, back up slightly so I can see the entire thing and make sure everything is looking correct, and so far it is. So, slightly above where the jaw ends, we have the ear, and just slightly above, it's kind of almost inside of the jaw a little bit, kind of like here. And once again, if these proportions are wrong in the end, I will, you know, go back and change them. I'm not scared to just erase an entire section of my piece if I need to. Never be scared to do that. Your drawings will be a lot better if you make sure that you always fix your mistakes before you move on to the next step. Now I can already feel like this ear is coming out slightly too big for his face, but we're just gonna draw the whole thing out and see how true that is. Actually, you know what? I think it is the right size, at least roughly. We'll fix it later if needed. Yeah, that doesn't look too big. Alrighty, so we have that placed in. I'm gonna now start placing in off of this bottom brow ridge, the top of the eyelid. And I like to separate the eye into multiple different pieces, although nobody should ever take advice on drawing eyes from me. So I'm just going to do this part without really saying much about it, because I don't want to give you guys bad advice on how to draw eyes. I'm horrible with eyes. Alrighty, you know what? I'm so far not hating this too much. Although I do feel like this needs to be, there you go, slightly skinnier here. That looks much more right. Okay. Now I'm gonna draw in this pupil, kind of more or less where it is. And it's right about here. And since we're looking at it from a side view, the pupil, it's almost shrunken like this. Like it's not a full circle the way it normally would be. This is slightly too small here. Let's widen this up. And once again, we will come in later and shade this all in as soon as I'm finished with actually placing everything in the right spot correctly. I'm gonna show you kind of how I shade and plot my shading. And I do that with 5-step process. I actually learned it online from somebody named Brent Everston. You guys should go check him out, he's great. But he has a 5-step shading technique that I find works for me fairly well. And for the lips, the fulcrum divides the lip into 2 pieces at the top. So we try to make sure that we have that in there. And for the bottom lip, we have a similar type of thing that happens, but it's much more subtle. And, you know, we want to make sure that we don't overdo it on the bottom lip with the little separation, just a little bump, not even really noticeable. And now here, the top lip kind of comes over the bottom lip slightly, and we have just the rest of the contour of the lip line. It leads all the way to the back here and forms a little dimple. Okay, a little dimple back here. And the edge here of where the bottom lip ends, this is what we're going to use to kind of start marking the shadow later on. Which once again, I will show you how we do. I can see here that the chin slightly too out and too small. So once again, I go in and I fix things. I like to just go over and then erase afterwards because I can use my previous line to kind of gauge how much bigger I need things to be or how much smaller I need things to be. So you can already see that chin looks a little more correct now. Okay, now the next big step here would be the hair. So we're just gonna make sure we have this hair placed in correctly. Behind the ear, we have a shadow shape that comes in this way. And this is what's gonna help us kind of lead to the hair. This is the only shading that I'm really gonna do preemptively. And yeah, it's just because I kind of needed to start marking things. Or actually, you know what? I don't actually need it to do it from here. I can start from this part of the ear here, where I see a bit of hair. We're actually not gonna be able to capture the entirety of the hair due to the size of the drawing I did, but that's fine. And once again, this part specifically with hair, it doesn't really have to be exact. You just have to try to make sure you kind of nail the direction of the hair. And for him, it doesn't actually matter so much because his hair is curly. So it's a little wild. It's almost all over the place. But it still does follow a basic structure in which the back of the hair, like the back side of the hair, kind of comes down this way, and the top of the head going forward kind of comes this way. But it's very, very subtle. Although it does follow a fairly, a fairly specific pattern, even though it's subtle. And we're kind of trying to wrap the hair around here, give some form to the head with varying levels and distances, and really just try to capture the form without really overdoing it. You don't really have to overdo it on the hair. I find that the hair, people think about it too much, and then it gets really complex, and then it just looks weird. Don't focus on the individual strands. Focus on the big shapes of the hair and the direction. It's the most important thing when it comes to hair. Alrighty, so now we have the, the basic shape here of the hair plotted. I'm gonna just make sure that I catch the rest of it here because I really want to draw in this back part of the neck. And this hair connects to that here. Although once again, we're not really gonna see much of the back side of the neck. I still need it there. And well, you can kind of already start to see this is looking like a, kind of like a human being. We're getting there. So now, we're gonna make sure that this forehead extends to the right distance, which I feel is about there. Yeah, it looks right. Now we have a small bit of hair here that just kind of drapes over this like this, and it comes this way. And once again, this is very rough. We're not really getting the exact sizes for anything. We're just kind of feeling things out. All right, and this piece of hair comes this way, and it kind of extends into another piece of hair that drops back this way as well. And off of this, we have another curl that kind of comes like this and pulls back this way. And we have this one right here that comes above the ear and leads down into some shadow shapes that are here. Okay, well, we kind of have the basic shape of the hair plotted. Now from this, from here, we have a striation on the neck here. And this is gonna be one big shadow shape, but that striation is a line that we need to add simply due to the fact that this is where the chest would be. And coming off of this, we have this other muscle here on the neck. And we have another one that comes more or less this way. And this would be the top of the chest. Okay. So now, how do we get to some shading? So to shade, I'm going to use two things. I'm going to use one, a black Prismacolor color pencil. It's a black Prismacolor Premier. And it's a Prismacolor black. So it's just pure black. I'm going to use that. You could get some really darks and some pretty lights actually with this as well. And I'm going to be using a white pencil because I'm on toned paper. If you're not on toned paper and you're just on regular paper, instead of using a white pencil, you're just going to let the white of the paper just shine through. But seeing as I'm using a toned paper, I'm going to be using a white pencil. Okay. So now how do we achieve some darkness in here and make it so that, you know, it looks right? So we have to identify where the light is coming from. In my reference here, it looks like the light is coming directly from the left, coming this way. I'll show you the reference there so you guys can see. Yeah, as you can see, the light, it more or less seems to be coming from back here, and it's coming this way. So we're gonna try to emulate that. We have a shadow shape here. We have some shadow under the chin. The neck is where it gets, you know, very much, we're gonna have to do a lot of work there. And then in the hair, you know, we just have some darkness that comes in here and by the ear. Under the nose as well, obviously, and we have your basic, you know, lip shadows and stuff like that. So how do we go about actually doing this? Okay, so first, we're gonna draw a line of termination for every single one of these shapes that we draw in. Oh, and actually first, before I do that, I completely forgot that I have not drawn in the rest of the ear. Huh. Let's do that really quick. Let's just get this ear in. Okay, so now I have the ear drawn in. I'm going to start drawing in some of these lines of termination. And the line of termination is just essentially where there will not be any light, and all the light that we would see would be reflected light, which is still shadow. So we're gonna start kind of plotting in more or less where these shadow shapes go with our black Prismacolor pencil. Very lightly. Don't want to be too dark. Where all our shadow shapes are, where they go. We're going to try to just kind of add them in. Very light. Right here on the back side where our striation is back here, we're going to have a little shadow shape that comes in like this. And well, you could use this 5-step process for practically anything, to be honest. Behind the ear here, pretty much anything you're shading, you could start with this 5-step process here. I think it's fairly simple for everybody to understand how it works, and that's why I'm kind of doing it here. Here, by the ear. And as you can see, so far, it almost looks like it's got the same hue as the pencil I was using. That's because you can press really lightly with this thing and really get some good variation in shading. And we're just gonna make sure all of these shadows are in and they're in correctly. And our line of termination is gonna come over here, because this piece of hair here would be casting a shadow. Once again, no amount of shading will fix your form issues, so fix your form issues before you even get close to doing this step. So yeah, we have a bit of a shadow that goes up here. And well, realistically, the rest of the shadows that we're gonna have here is right here under the nose. Right about there, like that. Actually, it's gonna dip a little further down. We'll see more of it on the top of the nose there. Oh, making lines. Okay. Now, on the lips, we're gonna have a bit of a shadow shape that comes like this. It's a rounded object, so we're gonna make sure it's rounded. And same thing on the bottom lip, we're gonna have a slight bit of shadow there. Okay, boom. So we have the shadow shape for the Adam's apple. A bit of a shadow shape right here. Okay, now all these areas that I kind of highlighted in, just put it that way, we're just gonna give a base value setting to all of these areas at around the number 3 value. Everything is gonna get a roughly a number 3 value within this. Oh my, no, I came up a little too low down here. Now, black Prismacolor is much harder to erase than a regular pencil, but still very much erasable if you go lightly for this section. Very, very much erasable. Now, once you start to get darker with black Prismacolor, that's when it becomes, you know, very, very difficult to erase. Oh, I forgot to add in some of the shadow shapes here. Okay, so this whole thing here is gonna get a number 3. And right above the brow ridge here, all of this is gonna get a number 3 as well, including down here. These highlighted sections of the lip, gonna get that same number 3 wash. Same with here under the nose, under the chin, or not the chin, the jaw. Flowing all the way about here. All of this here. And remember, right now we're just giving just a light wash or value. Not too dark. Okay, so this is gonna be our reflected light color, or less. This is gonna be the color of our reflected light and how that kind of behaves. I may or may not have forgotten to put a line of termination for the hair, so we're gonna do that here now. And just each of these individual little bubbles, you want a little bit of variation. Doesn't have to be exactly like the reference. And we're not gonna try to make it exactly like the reference. We're doing it in our own way. Now, once again, not very worried about these details right now. I will plot them in after I shade. That's just how I work. You don't have to do it that way. If you want to add in the details beforehand, you most certainly can. Now all of this around the ear is very dark until we get about here. This gets light and it gets dark again about here. Okay. So once again, under the line of termination here, you're going to have some hair, or not some hair, some value. And well, if you're doing it right, you'll already start to kind of see a little bit of 3D-ness. But we're gonna add some extra layers of 3D-ness within this. So when you're drawing the human face, you have a lot more plane shifts and a lot more shadow shapes than you would initially think. So that's why this is only the first step. Under the cheekbone here, we're gonna have a little bit of darkness. We're gonna fade into there. Right here where the nose is, usually has the lightest lights and the darkest darks. So we plot that in as well. Right now, we're gonna add in our core shadows. So our core shadows are the areas where there is no reflected light. So when light bounces off of an object, it'll hit your subject slightly in the shadowy spots. That's what this number 3 value is for. That's gonna be our reflected light value. And then we're gonna add in our core value. And we're gonna try to do that in the right ways. So our core values we're gonna have in essentially places where you don't think light would touch. And this doesn't have to be exactly like mine. I'm just kind of doing it in my own way. I'm not really thinking about it too hard. Just really trying to find those spots where there wouldn't be any kind of light at all. And on a rounded object, you want this to kind of fade off. You don't want it to be too sharp. Same thing as here. You want this to kind of fade. There you go, fade like that. Maybe down here it gets a little darker because the light's coming from the back. So we'll kind of make this section here fairly dark. Okay, right here as well. Yeah, maybe we'll make it more here. Yeah. Maybe this whole section kind of gets shrouded over by the jaw here. We'll kind of make this piece of neck fat a little more, you know, kind of in between, more like a mid-tone. Another core shadow over here, and this value is going to be about a 4. Very nice. Okay, now we're gonna have some, you know, I'm gonna add in some of this here because I can. Under here we have very, very dark spot, like I had mentioned before, and it kind of fades. Let's stay too dark. In the middle it gets lighter, and then it gets darker again towards the bottom. And as you see here, we're already kind of starting to build some of this 3-dimensionality. And you know, right here we have a core shadow on the nose. I always add in the core shadow on the nose for the most part. Not all the time. It depends on which direction the subject is facing. But when the nose is most out on your drawing, it's gonna have the lightest lights. It's gonna have the darkest darks about 99% of the time. So we have our core shadow right about here. I'm gonna have to go on my eraser on the bottom part because we have a little bit of reflected light that comes up and really just hits this bottom part of this nose here. So we're gonna revert that back to our number 3 value here. Yeah, kind of like that. That's not bad. Here on the eyebrow ridge, we're gonna have core shadow. It's actually going to be fairly large area covered with this coarse shadow. Fairly large area. And over here is going to be mostly reflected light. A little bit of coarse shadow there as well, though. Okay. Right here as well, I don't think there would be any light kind of touching here in any of these real areas over here until we get to the front where the hair kind of alleviates off. We'll kind of gradient this out and pull towards the front like this. And if you do this with some light strokes like this, you can achieve some pretty cool effects. So I think all of this would be dark. All of this section would be fairly dark. Inside the ear, oh yeah, definitely will be no light hitting in there. Alrighty. Now we're hitting a slightly different step, and it's just catching all the reflective light areas on the entire piece. And then we're going to soften out a lot of these shapes. So using some hatching with the Prismacolor, we're going to really just start to pull out some of these shapes. And then at the end, we're going to go in with our white pencil and really start softening some of the areas that need it. So I'm gonna make sure that there's some darkness here, some reflected light. Because it indicates a little plane shift here. Behind the nostril, always catches a little bit of darkness. And then right here under the fulcrum, we're gonna pull a little bit of darkness here. Even though it's not in the reference like this, I really just want to enunciate all of the plane shifts. A little bit of a coarse shadow under here, actually. This is not looking bad. I'm enjoying this. All right, we're gonna, even though this is not technically a shadow, we're gonna darken up this brow. Yeah, because, you know, it's an eyebrow, it needs to be dark. And well, this one is already kind of dark, but we'll darken it up with the Prismacolor there. And well, we're definitely getting to a place where I can say this is most definitely looking like somebody. Now it's about pushing and pulling value in the right spots before we get to adding in white. And the reason I add in the white last on tone paper, and this is my real only variation between my shading style and Brent Everson, is that he adds in these lights a lot sooner than I do. But I find the white pencil is harder to erase, so I leave it for last. You don't have to though, you could do it that way if you prefer to add in the lights sooner. This is just a guide. It's just a template. I'm gonna fade off some of this into here. It's gonna get slightly faded like that, boom. Make it slightly darker here so that we get more of that gradient effect. Very soft. Don't overthink it. Right here, we have a little bit of a shift. Right here. And this kind of pulls towards this like this. Oh yeah, now we're starting to get places. We're starting to get there. And yeah, we're definitely arriving at a good spot here. Now for the hair specifically, I'm gonna just really start to define these shapes a little bit more, the contours. And really just start to kind of hone in on the shadows and the light and where it is. So we're just still defining out these shapes. Just making them a little bit darker so that the shading has a stronger effect. When you have strong contours, it seeps through your shading a lot of the time. And since most of this is gonna be basically reflected light for the most part, we're gonna really try to, right now, carve out these shadow shapes and where they're gonna be on the hair. And this doesn't have to be too perfect. Just remember the light's coming from here, so it's gonna be darker on this side than it is on that side. That's pretty much all you have to know when it comes to this hair. And let's really define this ear. I'm fairly happy with the placement of it, so let's just kind of get it in there. Okay. Alrighty then. So once again, we're gonna hit a slight wash of number 3 on here. And all the parts where light wouldn't be hitting, we're gonna make them darker. Like right about here. And this is gonna gradient off into light. And pretty much for the hair, since it's a rounded shape, all of these shadows are gonna just kind of gradient off, except for this one, for the most part. Even up here, it is actually a slightly lighter. But all these shadows are gonna kind of gradient off. And we're gonna have some sharp ones, you know, but they're gonna be closer to the top here, like these. And we're just really not thinking about this too hard. The hair is much simpler than people would think to do. Just kind of put it where you think it goes. Just remember that with rounded shapes, the transitions are a lot softer normally. That looks about right. Okay. So, actually, there's a little bit, and notice this is kind of cool. It's a little bit of a shadow here. A little bit of a shadow there where the eye is. Now, we're gonna grab our white pencil. Now, my white pencil is not very sharp because I just sharpened it. So it's kind of like this little hunk at the top, and as I draw, it'll kind of, you know, flatten on one side and become what I want it to be. But for now, it's not. So we're gonna work with that. Just really plot in the areas where it's the most light. And we're not gonna do this very hard. Do it with about a number 2 value. Not quite a number 1 on a 5-step value scale. All these areas of light that need to be white. Gradient things off. I'm gonna pull, there's a fair bit of white here. Now the white of this paper, or not the white of this paper, the actual paper, gonna be more like a mid-tone. We're gonna use that to get more mid-tone out of it. So again, really just pulling out these lights. Lighter spots, and it's gonna be a little bit almost a little messy, but we're gonna blend it all together in the end, and you'll see there's a method to my madness. Sometimes I forgot to add in some of the wrinkling here and the shade that goes there. About the number 3. Just gonna leave it there. Now, in the areas where we know it's going to be really light, like the lip, I already kind of did it on here. And here I already did it as well. It's going to be pretty light. The cheekbone, very light. So we're going to just come over again and just make it lighter. Lighter where it needs to be. Right here, this line, very light. Down here as well, very, very light. I didn't even notice it before. But that's fine. We go adding things. And well, right here, there's a fair bit of light as well. Not quite a number 1 though. I'm gonna pull it and just leave it like that. Right here on the forehead, it's very light on one side, and then it kind of fades. So now it's looking a little rough, actually. We went from actually looking very, very complete to looking a lot less complete, but that's fine, because in the end, it's gonna look more complete. We shall see. Now, in all the areas where this mid-tone is, we're gonna hit a light wash of white. And not just the mid-tone, everywhere, very light wash. Light. I do this for a couple reasons that I'll explain afterwards. All the areas where some light would hit, let's give it a small, very, very light wash. We're not even, very light, very light. Just to get that tint of skin color and blend everything together. Remember, we're not doing this in the areas where no light is hitting. In none of these core shadows are we doing this. but we're doing this everywhere else. Very light. And actually, this is a core shadow here. I'll darken this up slightly here. And then over here, we're gonna hit the same little wash. Now, I'm doing this to here because it's a rounded off area, so I really want it to just blend together well. But besides that, it's really just gonna kind of come in here in the hair and do a very similar thing, and then we'll pretty much be done. Just plot in all these light areas with in the hair. As long as you go softly, yes, these colors are gonna, well, the values are gonna kind of mix together here. And that's fine. Don't focus on it too hard. Values are gonna mingle together, it's not a big deal. That's what we want. We wanna get some soft transitions and gradients. Really working in this white. I really love working on toned paper. Shading on toned paper is so fun because you add that element of adding in white. And it's very satisfying to add in white. Now, once again, nice big wash over everything here. Just blend all of that together. And well, there you have it. That's how we kind of shade in a Greek statue-esque. Actually, hold on a second. Missed something here. Missed the lip section here. Light wash over the lips as well. There you go. Okay, and you see that's how we kind of achieve these this 3D effect, and it looks like it's kind of coming at us. In certain areas, the cheekbone, you can tell it's a little deeper in, those types of things. And that's how you kind of, well, that's how you achieve 3D form. That's how I like to do it. I do it with a white color pencil and a Prismacolor black color pencil, and I sketch with a 0.7 Gritmatic Faber-Castell lead pencil. It is a graphite lead. So yeah, thank you guys, and have a good one.